I'm Emily Mashak, and I'm sitting here today with Rachel Soderquist, a registered dietitian here in Northern Colorado. Thanks for coming in today, Rachel.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I brought you in today because I wanted to talk about diet trends. We've been seeing a lot of them all over social media that it can be hard to determine which ones are good for you and which ones are not so good for you. But before we get into all that, I want to know a little bit more about your background. I know you work for both Del Sol Wellness and for Kimball Health Services, correct?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about what you do there.
Sure. So at Del Sol Community Wellness, we do a lot of holistic health. So we're looking at taking care of the entire body. So my boss is actually a massage therapist, and we also have a yoga instructor on board. We're currently looking for an acupuncturist to join the team as well. So we're really trying to encompass that whole body health. We actually made that even more accessible to the community recently by offering memberships that include all of our services for one monthly rate. So that's kind of our goal at Del Sol Community Wellness, is just to make healthcare accessible to the community. And at Kimball Health Services, that is a rural hospital in Nebraska. I drive there every other week.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And I do outpatient consults there, and I also, stop in and see all the inpatients. Otherwise, when I'm not there, I'm working from home, so I'm able to access the computer system from home, and I provide assessments. So a lot of the people at Kimball are actually an older population, so we're looking more at, making sure that they're maintaining their nutrition as they get older, as well as providing education as far as, diabetes, obesity, weight management, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So kind of got two different populations that I'm working with between my jobs, but it's nice to have the variety.
What inspired you to get into the nutritional field in the first place?
Yeah, so when I was actually in middle school, my sister and I went on a little bit of a revolt and became vegetarian because we've always been animal lovers, and so seeing some of those kind of traumatizing videos on YouTube made us decide to be vegetarian. And even though it was an impulsive decision, it ended up sticking. So here I am at 23, still vegetarian, and I feel better than I ever have. So that's honestly what got me the most interested, is learning how to eat well when you take meat out of your diet. So being able to get the protein and realizing, and especially as a kid, realizing that when you're vegetarian, that doesn't mean that you just get to eat mac and cheese all day. You got to start eating some real, healthy food with fruits and vegetables and all this stuff. So it's kind of a journey of learning, how to navigate nutrition when you take out this meat, which is such a staple in society. So it was really quite different. So that's how I got interested, and it actually ended up sticking through college. So.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about those diet trends. So there have been so many lately, and it can be really hard to know which ones are legitimate. I want to start with keto. Is that how you say it? Okay. Yep. Just because that's the one I feel like that's been going viral, as they say.
Oh, yeah. So
just tell me about it. What is it? Is it good for you? Is it not? What's going on?
Yeah. So keto is short for the ketogenic diet. And what's interesting is that this did not start as a weight loss diet. It actually started as a form of management for kids with epilepsy.
Oh, wow.
So I've been doing a bit of research on it lately just because, it is all over the place. And so this diet was popular as a therapeutic diet in the 1920s and 1930s. And the reason they kind of came up with this was because they found that kids who were actually not eating had many fewer epileptic episodes. So they found that when people don't eat carbs, that mimics the effect of starvation. So when we're in a fed state, our body is running off of glucose, and that's the primary fuel. That is what our body prefers. But as a backup for times when we are in a starvation state, we have what's called ketosis. So that's when we're actually running off of fats rather than carbs. Mm-hmm. So during this keto diet, the goal is to be pushing yourself into ketosis. So you're actually pushing your body into a mimicked starvation state. And so this weight loss occurs because we're kind of we're really challenging our body and the metabolism, and as we start to lose our glycogen stores, which is the stored glucose, we're actually losing water as well. So there's a few methods of weight loss that are happening when you're pushing yourself into ketosis. You're losing water as you're losing those carbs. You're taking out a large food group, right? So we're losing like all of our carbs. So we're limiting how many calories we're having. So there's quite a few things going on in the body. So while it has shown to be a pretty effective short-term method of weight loss, it's not necessarily something that we have seen to be, it's not something that lasts. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, when you're pushing yourself into ketosis, you're only allowed to have about 20 to 50 grams of carbs a day. One piece of bread is like 12 to 15 grams of carbs.
I'm out. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, right? Right? It's pretty extreme. And so the chances of actually being able to follow this diet for a long time are slim. We also don't have a lot of studies that show the long-term effects of what happens when your body's in ketosis for that long. Naturally, the state of ketosis is not supposed to last that long. So we don't really know what would happen if someone did decide to follow the keto diet for a few years. We don't know. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to say whether or not it's safe in the long term. In the short term, we do know that ketosis is generally a safe state to be in as long as you are not diabetic or have any sort of health issues, although it is still recommended to be in touch with a physician or a dietitian to be following this, because there can be some side effects that are not so great. It's hard to say that it's good because it's something that you're not going to be able to follow for a long time. And we don't have enough studies to really say, yes, this is really going to help you in the long term. My best recommendation is always finding something that provides you with moderation. So something that you can follow for a long time. So you're not doing this yo-yo dieting thing, because chances are the next time that a new diet trend comes out, you're going to be trying that one too, right? So we're jumping from low carb to high carb to this to that, we're fasting, not eating at all, right? So actually trying all those different diets does have an impact on your metabolism, because you're really confusing your body when you're changing all these different things. And we see that yo-yo effect where you end up gaining more weight than you've ever weighed before. Your best bet is to find something sustainable that you can actually stick with for a long time.
Going off of that, and I know this will be a little different for each person, but what is a good general diet people can follow that is both sustainable and healthy?
Yeah, definitely, focusing on having more fruits and vegetables. Like I mentioned earlier, we are such a meat-based society, and we simply do not need that much when we are not eating enough fruits and vegetables. So really, if you can shift your diet to more of a plant-based diet, that's going to be the best way to go. Because yes, you're going to have to make changes, and that's just a fact of any lifestyle change, right? So it might be a little bit uncomfortable at first, but the important part is taking baby steps. So you shouldn't necessarily go, from one day having a frozen meal for dinner or something and then expect yourself to be able to just switch the next day to having, smoothies and salads and baked this or whatever. It's making those small baby steps that are really going to help guide you into finding a lifestyle that is healthy and sustainable. And, allowing yourself moderation. That's the big thing about a lot of these diets, is that they're cutting out crucial macronutrients. It's not just a food group like vegetarianism. You're not having meat, but you're still having protein, right? So with the keto diet, you're pretty much cutting out all carbs, and that's just in no way sustainable. So you really want to be able to find a diet that is going to provide you flexibility so that you can still go out with your friends and have a glass of wine, or share an appetizer with someone, something like that, where you're not going to feel like, oh, I blew my diet,
Right.
It should be a lifestyle, not a diet. And that also includes exercise and activity and finding things you enjoy there. And it doesn't have to be the gym. We live in the beautiful state of Colorado, and it's this wonderful fall weather right now. So being able to get out and get outside and enjoy that, because honestly, the gym isn't everyone's favorite place. So find something that you enjoy, and it's really about balance.
It's definitely a lot of mental
Oh, it
energy
is.
going in towards sustaining it for sure.
It is, yeah. You really have to find your reasons of why you're doing it and be motivated to stick to it. And I think that that's a big thing too, is the mindset of, this is something I want to stick to. I'm sick of, jumping between these different diets and wondering which one is going to help me lose the weight, the quickest, or, lose the most weight, whatever it is. Just being able to accept that, hey, this is going to be my lifestyle. And, another important thing to consider is, the rate of weight loss. It's healthy to lose, up to about a pound a week. And many people have expectations far beyond that.
Right.
So just being realistic with yourself and also not focusing on the scale is a big thing, too, with finding a healthy lifestyle, because that includes a healthy mind. And we all get so fixated on that number on the scale that if we can find other ways to measure our success, like, oh, wow, I can hold a conversation while I go on this walk. I'm not out of breath. Or, hey, I'm going to walk an extra half mile today because I'm feeling great. We can measure success in other ways than the scale.
Are diets really only for weight loss, or can they be for someone just looking for a lifestyle change?
Oh, yeah. Even if you are at a proper weight, that doesn't mean that you can't make health improvements. So, some people on the outside look like they're perfectly healthy, but they get their labs drawn and they have, their blood lipids are high, or their blood glucose is edging on pre-diabetic or something like that. There's always improvements that we can make to our health. So weight loss is not the only reason to look into having a lifestyle change. And I think one thing that we often don't realize is how important what we eat is to our energy level. When we're eating a lot of processed foods, we tend to drag a bit. And when you kind of change to a fresh, more plant-based lifestyle where you're having fresh food and more nutrients in it, we really get a boost. And like more water, there's a lot of things, like I said, that are measurable and more like functional ways rather than, numbers and that sort of thing. So
we've definitely gathered that changing your attitude and just taking baby steps to get to a sustainable diet that works for you and makes you feel better is the way to go.
Yes.
But just to help people understand the difference, I want to talk about a few other diet trends I've seen. Let's start with paleo. What is going on with that?
Paleo is another trend. It's really just cutting out refined grains. So like bread is a no-no, corn, potatoes, that sort of thing. More of these. To sum it up, no grains.
Gotcha.
Yes.
But you can still have carbs?
Yes, you can still have carbs. So
Okay.
like vegetables and fruits, but like no refined sugars. So like no white bread, no French fries. But you can still have like fruit and stuff. But they really put an emphasis on like meat and like fruits and vegetables and lots of fats. Coconut oil is a big one with paleo. What they're trying to do is mimic what our prehistoric ancestors' diet may have looked like.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Now let's move on to fasting. I've seen so many things on social media about different kind of fasting diets you can do. I know there's not just one, but what is the overall effect of fasting on the body?
So there are many different types of what we call intermittent fasting. Some people choose to fast a few days a week and then eat the rest of the days of the week without any limitations. So there's like a 5-3 or 5-2 ratio generally. And when people choose to fast, they can either not eat anything at all, or they can choose to have a limited number of calories, like 300 calories, like a very, very low number of calories on their fasting day. And then another option is fasting every day, but for a period of time. So some people might not eat from 5 p.m. until 10 a.m. the next day, something like that. So there are like many different ways that someone can carry out intermittent fasting. So there's limited research on it. A lot of the research has been on animals. Once again, it does kind of mess with your metabolism again. You're pushing yourself into that starvation state, and then you're pushing yourself back, out of it. And there have actually been some studies that show that people that are of a healthy weight actually end up gaining fat over the starvation period because their body kind of goes into panic mode, like, hey, we don't know when we're going to get food next, so I better store, because I need to make sure that I don't run out of energy.
Gotcha.
Is it better than just having fewer calories in the day? Not necessarily.
So definitely research before you start any diet trend is very important.
Yes, and don't listen to everything that you see on social media because you don't know who is saying it, who's done the research, if there's any, promotional sort of things going on where they might make money from you buying their tea talks or whatever it might be. Always look to guidance or for guidance from a professional, and they're going to be able to guide you in the right direction. Just because your friend's doing it and it's working for them doesn't mean that it's the right thing that you should be doing for yourself as well. We're all very different. Everyone's metabolism is different, and you need to find what works for you.
Right.
So just because your favorite Instagram celebrity or whatever is following it doesn't mean that that's necessarily something that you should do.
Very good advice. Well, thank you, Rachel, for coming in and speaking to me today. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Again, that was Rachel Soderquist, a registered dietitian at Del Sol Community Wellness.